Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Dylan and Donaze podcast. This is episode one, and you guys are going to be listening to us talk about Traced One and all the stuff surrounding that whole series in the movie. And I felt like for the first episode, we should go into it by breaking down the movie for people to have a better understanding about it.
Um, Thank you for that introduction, Dylan. First off, I want to talk about Eric's character and everything that surrounds him. Um, One of my favorite aspects about Eric's character is his growth throughout each movie and how something about him changes. It almost seems like, from Traced One all the way up until Eric a Trace story, we kind of see him going through the motions of whether it be his personal life, his past, um, current situations. It all seems to really have a huge effect on him and his perspective on a lot of things. And you see it in Trace 2, where he comes to the realization that he doesn't really need Zach, he doesn't really need Lane, he doesn't really need all of these people because he comes to find out that he has so much power and leverage over everyone else that what's the point of them? They're just wasting his time, right? So, um, I feel like me personally, I sort of empathize with Eric in the sense of um, how he feels from within. Because although he's committing all these vile acts, um, there's still something within him that goes unseen or unnoticed to those around him. And I feel like they're not really seeing him for who he really is, and they're seeing him for who he's not.
Right. I've always now people always like call me crazy when I say this, but I always see Eric as a misunderstood character. He's misunderstood because obviously you said that he's dealing with stuff, and then it's like I'm not justifying his actions. Okay, I'm not justifying that he killed people because what his brother died. I'm not justifying that he killed people because he got bullied. I'm justifying the fact that people have a breaking point and sometimes you just have to see the message like in Trace and just see like the character and become the character and see what they're feeling, feel what they're feeling. Don't just he killed them for no reason. No, he didn't. He Eric always has a reason for his actions, and sometimes he'll even let you know why he's doing what he's doing to you in the act. So he's not like he's crazy, but he has his reason. Now, I think we should go ahead and start off by just breaking down. I wasn't going to at first, but I think we're going to just break down the whole Traced One movie, and we're
Yeah,
going to
and
skim over
let's
stuff. But
let's start off with the whole process, um,
yes,
because initially we kind of had like a rough sketch of what we saw throughout the film, but um, there was some troubles, right?
there were some
Um,
troubles. Yes,
and
in the beginning, it was very difficult for me to get the film from idea to video, and it was like he said, it was a rough sketch, as in like originally when I first started filming Trace back in like Octoberish of it's late October, so even it was like around Halloween time of 2022. Um, yeah, I tried to use a pencil and try to draw it out and lay it out to people, and they just weren't you know
Cooperating.
cooperating.
Um, when you told me to tag along with you, I was all for the idea and the vision. Um, and when I did that, I soon realized that I really liked the whole process. I really liked how you were filming it and the idea revolving it. I thought it had a lot of potential. And so, we would get on those phone calls and we talk about it. And as we continued to talk more and more, I realized that there was a lot here. And this is where I could express my like creativity and um, lay out some ideas of my own. And so that one night, that one call, you remember, Dylan, we kind of just discussed the whole idea. I was just like throwing a bunch of ideas at you, just scenes we could
Yeah,
do as far as Lena and Lacey, um, Jacob, Josh, Zach. We kind of really emphasize that Jacob and Zach um, fall out because Zach betrays Jacob in the end. So we definitely wanted to make that as grand as possible because that was going to be a huge game changer as we know it. There was a lot of havoc to be caused in later films. Um,
yeah. And I don't know if you guys know, uh, the trace that you guys see, trace one, that is not what was scripted. And to be fair, trace one was a freestyle movie that we did with a base and a border, an outline. So we
Literally,
knew what we wanted, but we didn't have, like, I don't even know how I'm trying to say it. We knew what we wanted, but it wasn't clear.
it was like I said, it's like that rough sketch. It's like that base. You know what I mean? And one thing I
Hmm.
love about what we do, and we'll discuss this in later episodes. One thing I love that we do, Dylan, is how we kind of take that base and we build the Empire State Building. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And we kind of take nothing, turn it into something. I mean, there's plenty of times where we be filming, so many times that we wouldn't even go and follow the script. We would just go based off of how we felt in the moment, and however we felt was the right thing to do. It was the proper direction, and it's what led to these masterpieces, right? Um,
correct. Let's start off with the first scene.
Go ahead.
November 4th, was it, or 5th? I
Um,
think it was the 4th.
I think it was. Uh, I think it was in October, if I'm
No,
not mistaken.
it was in
November.
November. It was in November.
Okay, definitely. Late October, early November. Yeah, early November. You're right.
So yeah, the ideal came up in late October, and we didn't start until early November.
And it took us 3 days because after school, I'd either be walking home already or, you know,
Yeah,
things like that. So it was just that one day. It was perfect. I mean,
yeah.
you know, it was perfect. And
And
I feel like
guys,
Dylan, you could elaborate more on that.
I had forgot, I had forgotten that I asked Donaze to even be in this movie because it was failing so bad. Like the process was failing. I was going home with nothing every day, and by that I mean it's not like from school to go home. I went from school wanting to film, trying to film, and then going home with nothing. So when the day that we actually got something done, I knew we had done something. I didn't know what, but I knew we had done something. And the first scene was Dinez and Ty. Ty who played Zach, Donaze who played Jacob. It was them walking, rambling, talking along. It was all improvised. It wasn't on script. We didn't have a script. Um, so they were talking, and then there's a scene where supposedly I'm watching them, right? And if you guys know the whole thing of when Zach disappears, we'll get into it later. But Trace 2, you see why he disappeared
Hmm.
in the flashback scene, which I love doing flashback scenes. By the way, it tells more of the story.
And that's actually our signatures in the Trace series.
Yep.
Is the utilization of the flashback scenes, because we don't usually give a lot of context in present time. We usually give a lot more context through the flashback scenes. So with that, I really love that we integrate that into our projects, and it's really cool to see. It has more like suspense, I feel.
Right. And then right off the bat, right after that scene, Zach has disappeared for days on end. Um, Jacob doesn't know what happened to him, and now this is the introduction of Josh, which is his best friend. And if you guys follow the story, Zach is his best friend, but he's more like a brother to him. Josh is his like best friend, hang out all the time, etc., etc. Josh, um, and Jacob are like thing one and thing two. I mean, they go off of each other so well, with jokes and all types of stuff. And as we know, Jacob loves to play COD. Um, it's kind of annoying at times of how many
Yeah.
times he said, "Want to play some COD?"
Yeah.
But you could have picked a different game. Fortnite, Call of Duty. Oh, that
You
is
know,
COD.
Too bad Halo wasn't good at the time. We could have been playing more of that, but you know. Um as you were saying about Jacob and Josh's relationship, they definitely share a special dynamic, as you said, with the jokes. Um I feel like Jacob was less vulnerable and expressive around Josh because he knew he felt um more freedom to do whatever. Josh was kind of like his scapegoat in the movie, where that's kind of like the friend he would lean towards, where it'd be any discussion about Zach or games, whatever the case may be. They just had a more fun relationship. And
Hmm.
Jacob and Zach's relationship was more close knit. Like, I mean, they talked about everything. You know what I mean? It was a real brotherhood. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
Zach's fall from grace is truly depressing. I mean, let's talk about it, Dylan. Um, Zach could have been. I mean, there's so many what ifs, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, all Zach had to do was just stay on the right side. But
Stay on the race.
could you really fault him, because Zach was doing the right thing? I mean, Jacob was no good. He was just picking on Eric. I mean, you don't really think Zach wanted to just continue to pick on Eric, because in Trace 2, Zach clearly says that it's pretty much old, leave it in the past, we're grown, right? And
Right.
so does Josh. But could you really fault Zach? Because I feel like ultimately it would lead to Zach um befriending Jacob, right?
Hmm.
Um
And I feel like had Zach not shaken Eric's hand, which, to be fair, that was all on him. I mean, That is not something you get peer pressured by. He willingly allowed himself to, and I quote, shake hands with the devil. And Zach made his choice, yet he regretted it immediately. And he didn't know what Eric was capable of at the time. But once he caught on, that's when he started feeling vulnerable, fearful, and he felt like he didn't have an escape. And now this is his new, I dare say, family, because they weren't family at all. He treated them like crap. He, as an Eric. Donaze, I wanted to break this scene down for you. The next scene after the first scene, which was, you guys getting that first text message. You and Abai, who plays Josh. You guys got that first text message, and you're confused, and then that leads into the whole us going into the school, him not like shaking my hand, and then our confrontation. So try to break that down for him.
So, and what was my thought process?
Yeah.
Um, my process throughout that whole ordeal was I was kind of just in tune with the character. I was just going off of how Jacob really felt. I mean, I feel like Josh, really didn't care enough to say anything or really show any major hate towards Eric like I did. But there was just something so childish about me, about how I went about a lot of things as far as Eric goes. And in that confrontation, looking at it in hindsight, I feel like Jacob shouldn't have reacted the way he did. He should have just brushed it off. I mean, I feel like Jacob throughout the whole Trace universe, he is really the character that fell because he could have handled things so much more differently than how he did, right? As far as Eric goes, his outbursts, what he said about him, how he feels about him. I mean, everything. So, you know,
What about that scene where me and you are in the library, and you got the books, you drop them, and I'm like, I know you or whatever, and I'm like,
in that scene,
go ahead.
um, I kind of just look at that, like I kind of look at it like Eric is really just trying to get back at me. It's kind of like a petty answer for how I've treated him, right? All because I didn't pick him up. But it didn't really resolve anything. I mean, it really just made matters even worse because you saw how Jacob continued to treat him throughout the film.
Hmm.
Um, I really want to discuss a particular scene in Trace, and that was you at home where you were kind of going just in your head a lot. You know what I mean?
We'll get to that scene. We'll get to that scene in just a bit. But the scene I want to break down next, which is the next one, is the fight. So this is where you get introduced to the two characters of Blaine and Henry. Those guys are never going to be seen again. Not that they were bad actors. Um, they were good actors, And let's just go back into this scene, okay? The whole fight thing happens. Eric is chilling in the snow. I don't know why. He's chilling outside in the snow during school hours, during lunch. They go outside, and once again, come on, guys. Josh picks a fight with Eric. Eric has nothing to do with Josh. Josh takes it upon himself to mess with Eric, him and his goons, and I mean he got punished for it. Now, personally, Josh might have had the worst death unseen in Trace one, and we'll be talking about the
Arguable.
unseen stuff. We'll be talking about the unseen stuff in a minute because that is so different from Trace two, which
So
everything.
so let me backtrack. Um, I want to talk about a specific character that you just noted. Um, I want to talk about Blaine, and I know to those of you probably watching us or watching this, I should say, aren't really familiar with Blaine or don't really know who he is. I don't think we ever name dropped him at all. He's just sort of in the credits, and you could kind of just assume who he is, based off of there's so many limited characters in the Trace series, or in Trace One, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to just talk about Blaine, um,
Played by Chaz.
which is Chaz. Dylan, who is Blaine, and what did he mean to you?
Do you want me to answer this as Dylan or answer it as Eric?
Well,
Like the thought
an-
process.
answer it as Eric.
Okay, so Blaine to Eric to me is nothing. He's just a guy that is just, hey, you want to help me with something? All right, cool. And it's almost similar to Lane. You know, that's why
But
the names are similar.
but okay, this is my take. During that whole altercation between you and Josh, how did Eric know they'd be going outside? I mean, you were already sitting out there in the cold. It'd be irrational for you to just be sitting out there up against the bleachers in the snow. So, how did that come about? And keep in mind, Blaine in that scene, and he was laughing, he was having a good old time. It's not like he really cared about seeing his friend getting into an altercation. I mean, did he know
Uh-huh.
what was coming next?
So if you look back at
Set them up.
retrospectively, yes. If you look back at that scene, Eric had his phone in his hand. Okay, and sure he could have just been on his phone outside, but one, why was he outside in the snow by himself? Pretty odd, especially during school hours. Go to class, bud. Right? Eric had his phone outside because he was texting Blaine, calling Blaine, blah blah blah. It was a setup. Blaine knew what he was doing, and they left. Right? Because if I remember correctly,
And
they left
this
Josh. Josh didn't leave them.
this isn't the first time Blaine set someone up in Trace
This is
or
not.
Trace One. Blaine set up Lena in Trace One, and Blaine set up Josh in Trace One too. Now, Blaine was never seen again after this. I mean, who knows what really happened to him?
He's just living his life now. He's no use
He's
to me. He
living his
never.
life, right?
He was only a
But
use to me for a certain part, but now he's just living his life. I don't care for him.
so what you were just saying prior to this scene right here, Dylan, something I really wanted to hear on your end was
About how
the
set up and how they left him.
well, no, I want to talk about the deaths that go unseen because
Oh yeah.
after this we have, I mean, what is I believe one of the most iconic scenes in Trace One, where Lena drinks the water and ends up being poisoned.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's one of the most iconic death scenes in the whole series. So let's talk about Lacey though. because Lacey goes super unseen throughout the film. I mean, we had a scrapped scene with her in which I feel like we could talk about Dylan. And originally, during the whole classroom scene where Josh didn't shake your hand, that was actually supposed to be Lacey in that chair ignoring you. And that's
Yeah.
when we're going to go commit those violent acts. So
Correct. And
when you
guys, by
took
the way,
Lacey,
I have that unseen footage.
Hey Lacey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So what I wanted to tell you was,
but as
Yeah.
far as
So,
Lacey's death goes, Dylan, that went unseen. We just see you take her.
mhm.
What happened there?
you know, the podcast was supposed to be, a lot of answering unanswered questions, but I kind of feel like we should leave it still up to the audience. You know, I personally feel like the audience should determine what happened to Lacey Lacey. Eric doesn't know the names of his people. That's why in Trace Two he got so happy when he remembered a name. Um,
But I feel like since there wasn't much background and we rarely ever showed Lacey, I feel like it would only be right to know how she died and what way she died. Because
mhm.
I could see a character like Zach, or someone that had a lot of screen time, knowing, or not knowing what happened to them. But since Lacey had barely any screen time, I feel like it's only right to know what exactly happened.
Okay,
And
so
there was very limited deaths in Trace One. So what happened?
I'm about to shoot really far up, real quick, and then come back down. All right. If y'all remember, at the end of Trace One, Lane took Jacob, and all Eric knew was that he told Lane to take Jacob, and he told Jacob to never come back again. That means Jacob was living his life, and Eric was unknowingly not aware of where he was and what he was doing. If you guys want to know what happened to Lacey, Lane took her, and Eric has no knowledge of where she is, what happened to her. To be fair, I would be surprised if Lane killed her himself. Okay, so I don't know what happened to Lacey, but you can ask Lane. Now, this next scene done is I want to break down, which is a pretty cool scene in my opinion. I love the shots in this. After the fight, you know, Jacob is called up or texted, and he goes to the bleachers. After he goes up to the bleachers, he goes down, gets taken away by Eric. And actually, we filmed that scene quite a few times actually, because if you guys notice, Eric didn't have his coat on in that scene, and that's because we had filmed it so many times. I kind of just got sick of doing it, and I just took my coat off and said, "This is this is it. This is the shot." And I think Donaze remembers that. And
Yeah, it was a really cool scene. It's one of my favorites, and believe it or not, I think we filmed that two different ways, in which I don't know where the other footage is at.
lost, lost.
Lost, yeah, lost footage. Um, but it was definitely a great scene, and I believe that was the ultimate, like, Eric and Jacob. confrontation, altercate. Like that was really it. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
cool. It was good. It was grand, and it was fitting. Um, at that point in time, and I feel like Jacob was, you know, going day by day, just gaining more and more suspicion of what was really happening. I mean, Zach disappearing, making up excuses, saying, well, he had to help out his mom or whatever
Hmm.
the case may be. Um, I feel like just each day that goes by, Jacob is just becoming more and more suspicious, and this Eric just keeps popping up out of nowhere, just every time, right? Because
Yeah.
Eric is everywhere.
He's there, then he's
So,
not. The slogan.
yeah.
And if you guys remember after the scene, I'm at home and I'm getting tools and weapons to not kill but torture Josh, right? And I feel like that was a perfect way to do that.
So now that I feel like we're at a point where I definitely want to dive into the more introspective. I want to, you can edit that. Now that we're going over all of these scenes, I want to dive into a more introspective look. And that's my favorite part about this whole process. Excuse me. That's my favorite part, or has been my favorite part about this whole process, is really breaking down these characters from a more introspective outlook and kind of like an in an outside looking in way. Um, I want to talk about Eric and that one specific scene. He told me to hold off here. I'm like, wait, Donaze, you know what I mean? Gotta break all this stuff down first. But I really want to talk about this. And speaking from an Eric standpoint, where were you at mentally in this movie? Where was Eric at mentally? And in that scene we spoke on where you're kind of in this room and you're just going through it, you're just having like a episode.
Uh-huh.
Walk me through that, because like I said, we make sure to show in these movies is the mental toll of
Yeah.
a lot of like the you can edit that, mental toll a lot of these events take characters. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so first I'm gonna answer that first question. So the Eric's mental health in this movie wasn't really good at all, and I think we can all agree that it wasn't good the first time you realized he was killing people. So you're when you're killing somebody in movies and whatever, you're not even there anymore. So we got to figure out why. Eric, um, before you guys really found out about the real truth behind why he started feeling certain ways, we all know that in the beginning it was because of the character um, Jacob. See, Eric was a happy guy. He was pretty cool. He didn't really let things get to him as much until he faced the same things that his brother went through, which is bullying. And there's a message there that I really wanted people to understand. Don't bully people. Just don't. And I'm not even going to say anything else about that. I mean, what more can I say? It's there. Don't bully people.
And
We never know what they're going through.
as me and you continue to work more and more, and the more and more we produce these ideas, that is one thing we are to present to the people, is that mental health is very important. You know what I mean? It's a real thing, and it is something we want to present through these movies because, just like how they say music is sometimes the soundtrack to my life or this album, whatever. We want these movies to be a world, right? We want to build a world around these movies for people to escape into. We want them to relate and really see the vision of what we're going for. Going into what I was saying, the more and more we continue to work in, again, everybody in future episodes, it's going to get better. We're going to talk about more about our friendship and how we work and what we have for the future. But um, me and Dylan are definitely integrating mental health and mental deficiencies and all of that into our movies and what we produce because it's important for people to see. And Traced is one of those movies where you have a bunch of characters going through something. You know, you have Zach, who really fell from grace, as you see, and it's his biggest regrets, and it haunts him every day. You could see it on his face, almost in every scene. He looks drained, he looks exhausted, and he looks he's just shackled and trapped under Eric. So, you know, and don't take that out of context. You could probably edit that,
No,
but
I won't. But then there's I have to
um,
answer that second question about the White Room because I got
yeah.
a lot
Oh
of
yeah. Let's
backlash
talk
about
about.
that scene. And
I'm going. I'm
guys,
going
come
off
on,
track here, bro.
guys, I've you got to understand. You have to not look at the length of a scene and look at the substance of the scene. And you have to realize you have to look at the character in that scene and what he's doing. If you guys don't understand, in that scene, the long one, and I quote, Eric is going through the motions. He's dealing with the fact that he's about to do something that he doesn't really want to do, but he feels like he has to do it. And by that, you guys know what I mean. And he's like, if you see him putting the gloves on, he's like putting the gloves on. He's like, wait a minute, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it anyway. He puts the jacket on. He's about to leave. But you know what? Wait a minute. What am I doing? Am I really about to, hurt this person? So he's going through the motions and he's real. He's not like some. I guess in that scene, I was trying to make it seem like Eric had some feelings and he had a heart in a way where he actually thought out what he was going to do and he's not just doing this off of an urge because as you guys know, Eric gets that urge and it just you got to understand the character and not just look at a length of a scene. Okay, and I'm not bashing you guys for looking at the length of that scene. I'm just expressing the fact that you have to understand the scene and not bash it. So there's your answer to that question. But what I wanted to break down was the masterpiece scene. And I remember when that was filmed, December 14th, 2022. And you can
So I'm
tell them how
actually
that,
gonna chime in.
yeah, tell them how that went down.
Um, yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes ever. So Dylan, as we know it, you did in school that day, and it was in our hands to do that scene. And if I remember correctly, I believe you wanted it to be stationed somewhere else, but I was really going for like the front of the school. You know what I mean? Like with the tree and everything. Like my was all time high when it came to that scene. I just really saw something there, so I was like, we got to do it here. So I kind of took it in. I kind of went and took initiative and told everybody this is what we're gonna do. It's how we're gonna film it, and we got it. And if I remember, we called you, and after we finished filming, um, we were like, "Oh, this is so cool." You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna love it. I remember we're like, "Oh yeah, Dylan's gonna love this, bro. Like this is hard." right? So, yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite scenes. Some really good acting, some really good shots, and again, one thing we lacked in Traced One, and again, Dylan, we got to talk about the scheduling process because it was a process times, sometimes draining and the like sad. Um,
Yeah.
that scene, we actually had many angles, shots, and I feel like that was also that scene had a lot to do with how we were gonna shoot um our next piece, which was Trace Two. As you saw in Trace Two, there was a lot more angles, a lot more different shots, better acting, and the masterpiece scene in Trace One um was definitely
The
a
precursor.
foreshadowing of what was to come.
And as you guys know, the masterpiece scene, which is what we call it, because it was so good, in quality and acting. I think that was because at this point in the movie, when they filmed that scene, we hadn't filmed quite a lot of anything because, like I said, this is December 14th of 2022. Um, we had rescripted the whole movie during winter break. So most of this stuff, we were like 30, 25 minutes in. And to backtrack it real quick, I actually wanted the movie to be 20, no longer than 25. And it
That's
ended up
right.
being an hour and 11
You,
minutes. So
you preach that.
we impressed ourselves. I impressed myself because I was not trying to
And
make an hour long movie.
it's definitely, I don't want to say it's become a bad habit because it's good that we're making these pieces and we're presenting people and everything, and it's really impressive. Um, but it's become sort of a habit that we're making such long movies. I mean, we'll get into it more with future projects and everything and original ideas. But as
Mhm.
far as the masterpiece scene goes, it's amazing and and even with the low resolution, the scene
Yeah.
still shines and is one of the best out there
And towards the end here, we're going to talk
within
about resolution and the miracle that happened on January 23rd, 2023.
the
But
miracle. Yeah.
we have that one
or
scene.
or or should we talk about the miracle that happened prior,
What was the miracle? Help me
the
out here.
original ending?
No. Okay, yes.
Or
We'll
wait,
get to
was it
that in a
the same
second.
day? Am I tripping?
We'll get to that in a second. We
All
filmed the
right.
ending a few days. We filmed the ending. So the original.
We Oh, listen, everybody. We have
Oh
two
my god.
endings. We have two endings. One being the ending everybody saw. You know
Which is filmed
exactly.
January
Take
19th.
well, it was the same thing. Um, same shit, different toilet, right?
Yeah.
Same everything. Um, but there was a lot more, and it was horrible. Okay, Dylan, we got to talk about this real quick before we get into the ending, because like how we
Mhm.
did it, right? We had to get the work done, then we talk about the best.
Okay, okay.
Ending, everybody. Let's talk, because this scene, we have it. We have it. It's just I gotta break it
Yeah,
up and send it to you, Dylan, and it's been a whole thing that's been trouble. But we want people to see it. So,
right.
um,
I've been wanting people to see it since we made
so
it because at that time I was
yeah,
very high on that
I
ending.
guess I
I love that.
stalled. I stalled a little bit because it's sad for me to see, and it's extremely cringy, and it's just horrible. I'm just gonna keep it honest.
Yeah, it was
Original
only after.
ending was a
Huh?
fight scene. It was a fighting scene. It was an epic. It was a fighting scene. It was an epic. It was the 300 all over again. Just a good old brawl. It was Jacob against Lane, Zach, and Eric. And I'm not even gonna say no more. Dylan, I'll send that to you still, and we'll get it out there.
When we
But
originally filmed that, I loved it, and I remember it's so funny to me still because there was a car across the street from we were in front of the school filming this, and there was a car across the street for the whole time we were filming, and this is when we were beating Donaze up in the movie Jacob. We were beating the character up. I had this stick in my hand. I was hitting them with it. I was yelling. They were holding him down, and I had to say cut only because I knew that car was watching us. And right when we stopped, I went straight to him. I wasn't even talking to them. I was just like pretending I was talking to him. And then the car left, which means like, I was scared because I was like, did they call 911? Did they think this was real? I don't know.
yeah,
That
and
was
what's
still pretty
worst
funny.
is we filmed it at the front of the school, like you said. And yeah, I remember when I got home that day and you started editing, and we were just on the call, and I was watching it, and I was sick to my stomach. I was like, "I'm not gonna do this, bro. This is gonna ruin the movie, and this is not it." You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
while it was a good idea if executed properly, it just was going against the whole theme of I mean, like
yeah.
some D shit, bro.
That
So,
that would be like a trace to like scene. I think, well, like because Eric got really intense.
definitely to like seeing, and it would definitely feel fit it fits some more future trace moments, but at the time this one was more low-key, discreet, mysterious. You know, Eric was more of an enforcer. Traced one and No Witnesses. To those of you that haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on Swifty's Cove. It's great, and it really does kind of show that part of that aspect of Eric being an enforcer in Trace One and No Witnesses. Just the whole beginning of the whole series, because as you saw in Trace Two, you know, Eric was more hands on, and that's an aspect of Eric that I miss. And down the line of this podcast, Dylan, we'll talk about that too, because I want to get your opinion on that. But the ending of Trace One now, the beautiful, amazing ending that goes unprecedented. Um, that was amazing, wasn't it, Dylan?
It was, and
Let's
um,
talk about it.
I'm gonna
Um,
have to just hold off on the ending real quick because I have to talk about one of my favorite scenes in this whole movie. And every time I see the scene, I tear up, and not out of sadness, but out of joy because of how great it is. And Dinez, I'm gonna need you to mute, and I will mute because I want them to hear this audio and just hear the intensity and the acting, and we're gonna go over it and talk about how we were feeling in that moment. And by the way, this is an improvised scene, no script. So let's hear it.
Hey,
What's up, man?
where is he?
I don't have him yet.
Why?
I'm working on it.
Why are you working on it when you had every opportunity?
Do you think this is easy? Huh? He's my fucking friend, man. This is hard. You think I want to do this? I'm trying to do what's best for you.
It's not about you. It's about him. You better get your act together.
Look, I'm gonna do it. All right? Even though this shit hurt me, I'm gonna do it. I might not like it. We grew up together. You know what? I'll do your deed.
I know you will. Be waiting on my phone call.
All right, that scene was totally unscripted, improvised,
Series ever
genuality,
amazing.
on-screen chemistry.
Yeah, no doubt. And every time when filming and me being on set and seeing you guys, I got super excited. Like, even on the calls. I mean, I'm so hyped seeing you guys on screen together and acting. You guys always come out with the belts,
Jesse
and
Pinkman.
that's really what I want and wanted to see. And Trace 2 really focused on that. Um, wow, Dylan, we have a lot to talk, bro. There's so much we could talk about this all day, man. Um,
Now, real quick before we get into the ending, because it
that
is
was a brilliant.
right after. Um, that I need you to help me with this, okay? Because I originally wasn't gonna film this. You guys insisted. Spring 2022 in the timeline of Trace. It was a scene of you and Abai sitting on the bench doing y'all thing. Break that down to me because I don't even know what was going
Yeah.
on.
Um. Well, the focus on the scene was to really highlight Ty's disappearances. I mean, he's been out of the limelight for so long, and even prior to um Eric kind of taking control over him and his outlook on things and people, Jack had issues with, you know, when it came to our friendship, um, when it came to doing things. I mean, I feel like Zach was becoming more distant by the day. And so that flashback sort of highlighted the fact that there's been a lot of this occurring, and we're talking about Lane and kind of mimicking him and making jokes because we never really liked Lane. Lane is weird. You're weird, Eric. Not you, Dylan. I love you. You're my brother. But everybody else, bro,
Almost made me get my glove.
weird. And that back sort of gave a lot more background, as we said earlier on in this podcast, you guys. That's one of our signatures. In Traced, we really do um, take advantage of the flashback scene and give a lot more background because we really don't show a lot in present time. We kind of leave it up to the audience to infer and assume what happens.
Real quick,
And
Donaze,
sort of,
speaking of how you guys didn't like Lane, let's talk about the flashbacks where that all tied in together. Where this basically where it all started. I'm walking down the street, I slip on ice, which is kind of real but wasn't real because we planned to slip, but I almost really slipped. But anyways, we were all, it was I slipped on ice. I was down on the ground because I hurt myself, my ankle or whatever, and I'm asking you for help. You turn around, you say, "Help yourself, man," or whatever. And then as I'm down, another flashback inside the movie, which played was Lane helping me up, and that was the first time I had met Lane, and I caught on quick on what I on that I needed him. And at first, it was more so I needed him as a friend, and then I realized that I might need him to help me accomplish the goal of taking down the one guy that I hate very, very highly. Eric, very. And it's crazy that now we're about to get to the ending. Eric hated Jacob so much that he kept him alive so he can suffer and grieve. That's how much Eric hated him. He rather not have killed the person that he intended to the whole entire movie just to keep him alive so he can suffer with the loss of his friends. And that's still mind boggling to me, and I
and
play the character.
I kind of like our different approach with that too. And I feel like this is where we can sort of transition into the ending, because instead of the ending being let's torture you, let's beat you, Eric is just psychologically picking Jacob apart, and Jacob is at the point where and he doesn't even know what to say. That is how you take someone down. And Eric executed that perfectly. And again, was ahead of everybody, So
What do
I
you think
love
about
our
Eric's
approach as
monologue?
far as the goes. It was great. It was everything it needed to be. I mean, he got everything off of his chest, and Eric had his moments. He had his moment of clarity. And I feel like it was one of the rare moments where Eric kind of expressed how he really felt, because in the movie, you sort of see Eric getting clowned or talked about. All of these things throughout the film kind of makes up for this moment for Eric to really express how he really feels and have his moment of dominance where he's like, you know, the best.
And
You
let's
know what I
let's
mean?
go to
Because
the
Eric was never the best.
let's go to the
And
reveal of Ty being with me on your part, because the audience knew Ty was with on my side, and we saw that whole story unfold on the screen, but your character did not know that until Eric was like, I had help and the help was so good, and Ty walked over to my side, and you're like be your character right now and tell me what went on in his mind when he realized that he was with the weird guy that you hate.
Zach, yeah, it really did. It stood out to me that Zach would do something like that because it's more so like he didn't really care for you and he kind of accepted the past and everything. So it was kind of weird, and it's another unanswered question. I mean, maybe you could give some background or context to all of this, but still, in my eyes, it was a very weird and shocking move. It was sort of like when like Kyrie wanted to leave LeBron. Like, why would he do that?
Right.
Championship. So I don't know. It was strange, right?
Right. And the big reveal of the movie was actually Lane. Lane was the surprise, and I think he was always going to be the surprise. Maybe even in the original script, I don't remember. But Lane was the surprise because he was in the first 30 or no first minute and a half of the movie. He was in the first part of the movie, not seen at all, and then boom, he's there in the last 10 minutes. So it seems weird that
And
Lane
let's
would
talk.
be the
Let's talk
person,
about.
but yeah,
Let's talk about the um goal with Lane's watching. Um, you know, it um it starts with Lane, it ends with Lane, and in Trace Two or Erica Trace Story. To those of you that watched, again, if you haven't watched, go watch on Swifty's Cove. It's great. Oh yeah, and every week at 5, right, Dylan?
eight
I mean every Friday.
every
Every
Friday at
Friday
8.
at 8. So everyone tune in, please. Um, um. So yeah, Lane was definitely. I wish we would have um like flexed his character a little more in the sense of let's kind of see what we could do. Let's sort of make him an X factor. But one thing Eric never had was an X factor. It was always just Eric. Eric was the X factor. That should be in the edit, Dylan. You can edit that in. That was hard,
Yeah,
right? um, yeah, that was fire, bro. I'm sorry, but again, I wish one thing we did give Eric and Trace was that X factor. And it's so funny that this is gonna be a lane diss. Sorry, Brandon, but you didn't show up in Trace and you didn't show up in real life.
ah,
So for that reason, um, That's why Eric didn't have that. So, um,
But he made up for it, so we
he
give
he
him
made
that.
up
Of
for it. Yep, you made up for it, Brandon. All love, right? All love.
course,
Um,
of course.
but um, the ending of Trace One, as I said, is unprecedented. It's something that would be hard to replicate, definitely within this universe. It was grand. It was amazing. We took that different approach, Dylan. Like I said, with the whole psychological torment instead of taking a more physical and painful route,
Hmm.
which I really loved and admired. Um, and it was great. Another
Now,
thing I want to sort of wrap up this first episode, I want to talk about a couple more things that have went unnoticed, and one being something I really have been looking forward to talk about. I want to talk about um, the post credit scene of Trace One, and as all of you seen, you know, the young Jacob was played by none other than my little brother. Um,
name's Dylan.
it
Right?
name's Dylan. Yep,
Gotta love
Dylan
Dylan.
Melvin. Um, and my next door neighbor, who was very intrigued by the idea.
Resembles Todd too.
Yep, and we kind of, again, with the utilization of the flashback scene, we kind of go into the past in what I believe was third grade. No, it was no,
I
no,
think
it
it was
was
third grade.
something like that. We were
Okay,
in
well,
elementary
real quick,
school.
guys. That year, which I really wish I had put it in, which I intended
It
to,
was
was in
because we
2012.
in Trace time we were seniors, right? Like
No,
2024,
juniors.
juniors in 2024.
Oh, in 2024, in Trace 2, you guys were seniors. But Trace 1, you guys
Okay,
were juniors.
so 2012 we were in first grade.
First grade, yeah.
We were in first grade. So yep, 2012, and we were kind of going over a time where Eric crossed me up in basketball. Right, you never think a day in your life Eric was hooping,
Yeah, he was,
but
man.
yeah, he was hooping,
Dylan
and he
Dylan doesn't
crossed
hoop.
me up, and I was really salty about it. And this is kind of going back into how really childish Jacob was at times, and
They even talked about my nose.
again, yeah, I talked to your nose looked like a trunk. Yeah, it again. There was a lot of things that could have been prevented if Jacob acted more of like his age and didn't act like a little kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, was that scene and how and what that meant as far as the story goes, because we didn't just want to go to past to go unnoticed. And I came to you about it, Dylan. I was like, what if we did this? And you're like, oh, that'd be cool. Right. And then it ended up being really cool.
Yeah.
And um one of the final things or topics or whatever everyone wants to call it we're going to talk about today is the filming process of Traced One. It was
Oh, Lord.
it was unique. Um,
Very much so.
it was unique. Um, oh my goodness,
Where did we start?
I don't even know, bro. I don't even know, bro. What the ooh, bro. All right, let's just talk about.
How about we gloss over the actual beginning process and we start with the process where you and Ty were there. I like that part.
No, because yeah, let's talk about it, because when we did that, it seemed to be sunshine and rainbows, right?
Yeah.
Nothing much, right? It's gonna be easy process. I was wrong. I was
Hmm.
wrong. I mean, I'm not even gonna name names. No name dropping. I mean, I really could, because I speak that real, but yeah. Let's just say people didn't show up, and we were going to have replacements for scenes. We were going to take characters out of scenes and just replace them with new people. We
Yeah.
would break down an idea to someone for at least 2 to 3 hours. They'd say they want to be a part of it, and then they wouldn't
Ah,
show up,
I hate I know
right?
who you're talking about.
Yep. And I mean, if those of you are curious, just look at the credits.
Hey, but listen, let's talk about the you and Todd stuff.
Look, Dylan, we keep it real around here, bro.
Let's talk about the
Uh,
you and Ty, you and the buy, because now I personally kind of felt bad at times because I had to keep you guys away from home and after school a lot, but I think it was all worth it in the end.
I mean, it wasn't much of an issue to me because, like I said, I wanted to be a part of this process, and I really was intrigued by your idea and what you had originally, and I kind of wanted to just help build onto that, and that sort of sparked a major interest within film and writing. And prior to this, I was already a writer. I would write a lot of poetry. Um, and once me and Eric, once me and Dylan, see Dylan, we talk about Trey so much, bro. I call you Eric. Once me and Dylan started working on this project, it really did spark a major interest. So it wasn't much of nothing to me. I love doing this, and I love doing it now. And man, I can't wait until the next episode because Dylan, we have a lot of great stuff to talk about.
And at the it would think about this, guys. Without a budget and an actual, camera, it is very hard to film a movie without space
Extremely.
and all that stuff. And we'll talk about
And
space.
space, yeah. But as far as the whole filming process goes, we'd be here talking about it at least an estimated hour, another hour or two, talking about the tedious film process, how people wouldn't show up, this and that. It was just a mess.
Yeah, I hated
Long story
that.
short, but we're gonna have to cut that short, everybody. Long story short, it was a mess. Um,
But before we end it, we gotta answer the questions for this podcast, which we're gonna end it off with.
oh, of course,
And
of
the first
course.
question is for both of us, which you can answer first. What was your favorite and least favorite thing about making Trace?
Um, my favorite thing about making Traced was definitely um being able to film and being able to practice different shots and different angles, seeing how we could film it, seeing how we could um um make more of a story and meaning out of different shots and scenery. One thing we talked about, Dylan, and expressed to you was I love the many locations, and I always had an idea for scenery and setting, and that was definitely my favorite part of Trace. And yeah, as far as my least favorite thing, was definitely the long filming process and how we have to wait. People weren't show up. People weren't determined, and in the end, it was a valiant effort. Um, and we got the job done. But my favorite part in all of this, and forever will be, I feel like as long as I'm making movies, is the filming, the shooting, the scenes, the shots, the scenery, the setting, everything. I love it.
Hmm.
Um, definitely.
Yeah.
Another thing I loved going into that was the vision. I loved having the vision for it and kind of seeing it come to life in the way I really did see it, and everything came to fruition. But go ahead, Dylan. Sorry for cutting you off.
Are you good? My favorite thing about Trace was not the filming part, but well, the filming part, yes, but it was always seeing the product of what we filmed and being able to see the vision come to life and see the idea that you spoke about come to life, and it's pretty cool to see, especially for my first ever movie. My least favorite thing, and it will always be my least favorite thing, and I hope people don't think I like it, is filming in the snow. I hate filming in the snow, and we actually real quick off topic, the scene that me and the guy fought, or me, Eric and Josh they fought in the snow, that scene wasn't even supposed to happen. I was actually going to cancel shooting that day. That was during our final exams or midterm, whatever you call it.
If I remember correctly, the original scene was actually supposed. Oh yeah, everybody. The
Actually, yeah,
original
let's talk
scene was
about that.
supposed. The original scene, and Dylan, we rarely talk about this ourselves, even when we're on the phone. The original scene going into that, everybody, was actually but supposed to be a bleacher scene with Lacey, Lena, me, Josh, and I think that was just about it.
Hmm.
And we were supposed to be throwing popcorn at Eric and just taunting him and making fun of him, just kind of like again just emphasizing on the fact that we don't really like him, we pick on him, he's kind of like a punching bag for us.
Yeah,
So
and the
that
fight
was
was
the
still
original
probably
idea.
going to happen too. But
Yeah, it was likely going to, because it was planned for a very nice day, a sunny day, sort of like the 2018 flashback scene,
yeah,
which was a
that
great
was
scene
awesome
as
too.
well. That was awesome. um but again, like at the beginning of the podcast, whatever me and Dylan were really feeling in the moment, I come to realize that that was the right approach all along. It was the right thing to do, and
Hmm.
everything came about perfectly. So, in no ways would I change any part of how we filmed it and
Yeah,
where we filmed it.
and you guys don't understand the thought process either. Like, when because I mean, we live in Cleveland, guys, and whoever lives in Cleveland, you know the weather. So the day before, clear, sunny, spotless. You wake up, it's snow on the ground, and it's like, I don't know, 30 degrees outside, and it was horrible. And I was standing outside for the longest because I was just trying to figure out, like, and Donaze was there. He remembers, I hope. Like, I was there
Oh yeah,
scoping the area, trying to figure out how we're going to film the scene now that there's snow, and how I'm going to figure this out. And that's
oh yeah,
before I was going to cancel it.
and that was,
And
let's talk about that story too. Just like for memory's sake, we I believe it was when we were finished with our finals, and we were just in the lunchroom. There was barely anyone there. We're just standing there. We're just talking, throwing ideas at each other,
for
and
like
then
an
we're
hour.
just looking out the window. And it's like when you're playing with army men and or like battleship, and you're placing all of your you know pieces.
Ideas.
You're just laying out all of your pieces. It's like we were just putting everything in the place, and we were like, okay, it's time to go. You know what I'm saying? So when it came time, we kind of had everything together, and the vision was perfected. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. And I remember, if you remember, guys, the gate that they walked through, I remember seeing that through the window, and I was like, you know what, that would be cool if we went out the door, went through the window, or not window, went through the gate, and did the whole thing, and it ended up being great. And my favorite part about that scene was my jacket or my coat. It was bright yellow, and then the snow made the contrast so good because the yellow popped out so much, and it worked out for the better. So I'm proud of that scene. Minus Blaine's hentai comment, but let's go to question two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will there be any new characters? Honestly, just I'm gonna be
So
straightforward. No.
this is this,
After Erica Trace story, there will be no new characters, no new Trace movies. Ladies
but
and gentlemen, the next question
yeah.
is question number three. Why is Eric so crazy? Eric's character is so crazy because he doesn't really feel like he has anything to lose at times because of the simple fact that he lost all he had, or at least all he thought he had, and we'll get into that because we already know um, a love interest came along at one point in the next movie, but he did lose all he had, and I'm gonna leave this into the next question in a second. Eric doesn't have a goal, like he has a goal, but he doesn't have a goal to like finish what he starts. Because as you guys see, Eric is a
And
staller.
one thing to know, everybody, and for those of you to remember, because I want everyone to really see the evolution of Eric from Trace 1, Trace 2, to Eric and Trey's story, and even throw in no witnesses because it is kind of like a um stretch from Trace One. Um, you know, as time goes on, um, we kind of see Eric progressively change in his demeanor, in the way he treats people, his peers, acquaintances, everyone around him. In Trace 2, you see more unhinged, you see more violent, more crazy, and you kind of have to compare the two. So, one, Eric, he's more of an enforcer, right? Or you do this, you do that, you handle this, and I'm gonna sit back at home on my burner. In Trace 2, he's way more hands on and involved. He's less of a mystery and he's more of a known figure. And as we know, people soon start to catch on. Um, it's very fun to compare the two. And me and Dylan do this a lot on the phone. And I believe one of our most phone calls we talk about for like 3 hours. Um, how this is. And it's one thing I really wanted people to really see and know about Eric is that there's really an evolution. And there's some alterations of Eric or or iterations, whatever, of Eric that are different from one another. And there's a lot to take and there's a lot to relate to. And again, Eric is evil. You know, he's the equivalent to any serial killer out here. I mean, he's crazy. He's everything. But when you look at it, the introspective outlook, you gotta really take the time to understand his psyche because there's a lot that goes into his character, his trauma, and his actions, you know? And, that's something we talk about a lot and something we definitely want people to see. And Dylan probably edited it out, but I was struggling with trying to talk about this because, you know, there's a lot that goes into Eric's character. There's really a lot more than people know it to be. And a lot of character dynamic with Eric.
Okay, the last and final question is who was Eric's brother?
Eric's brother, everybody, is Trenton Dickens. He's the one who, in the Miss Bailey scene, Miss Bailey came clean about it. She kind of told Mace like a reasoning for like what Eric, he hasn't been the same since, and it Eric's brother Trenton Dickens was killed um maliciously by a
Under
group
order.
of people. What you say?
Under order.
Wait, under order, right? And Dylan, we probably shouldn't talk about No Seekers, right? Nothing in it,
No,
or like,
save that for another time.
hmm,
We'll save that for another time.
save it for another time. Miss Bailey comes clean about that to Mace and gives it more of a reason why Eric is crazy and has issues and so forth.
That was the first of many episodes of the Dylan and Donaze podcast. It probably was all over the place for the first one, and that's why you gotta love it because it's real. But you have to prepare for more content, um, better sit downs, and more context to things that you've probably been wanting to know about. So I'll be seeing you
And
guys soon. Donaze.
and something to look forward on our next episode is me and Dylan are gonna kind of be we're gonna me and Dylan are gonna dive in and take a closer look at our friendship and just going over that and how this really came about and what is now. We're gonna be talking future ideas and a lot more exciting things is a lot. So appreciate everybody for watching and tuning into this. Like Dylan said, it was sort of all over the place, but you know, this is kind of like a closer look at how our phone calls get sometimes. We go from talking about something, then we're like, oh, let's talk about, you know what I mean? So I appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you, Dylan, for having me on here and letting me partake in these fun projects with you, bro.
No problem. All right. Peace, guys.